Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jayo Giri Varadhari Jayo Giri Varadhari Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharim Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Jayo Giri Varadhari Jayo Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Munatira Vanacharim Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Can somebody please just turn off this light here? Turn off. Thank you. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Shloka 17 to 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we have Shloka 17 on the boards. We'll chant that and I'll read later the rest. Karnavasya vinirbhinao Dishnyam svam vivishodisham Shrotrenam shena shabdasyam Siddhimyena prapadyatem Karnavasya vinirbhinao Dishnyam svam vivishodisham Shrotrenam shena shabdasya Siddhimyena prapadyate. Please chant. Ladies. Shrotenam shena sabdasya Karno, the ears, asya, of the gigantic form, vinirbhino, being thus separated, dishnyam, the controlling deity, svam, own, vivishu, entered, disha, of the directions, shrotrena amshena, with the hearing principles, shabdasya, of the sound, siddhim, perfection, yena, by which prapadyate is experienced. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When the ears of the gigantic form became manifested, all the controlling deities of the directions entered into them with the hearing principles, by which all the living entities hear and take advantage of sound. Purport. The ear is the most important instrument in the body of the living entity. Sound is the most important medium for carrying the message of distant and unknown things. The perfection of all sound or knowledge enters through the ear and makes one's lives perfect. The entire Vedic system of knowledge received by oral reception only, and the sound is the most important source of knowledge. And now I will read the rest of the shlokas. Tvacham asya vinirbhinam vivishur dishnam oshadhi amshina romabi khandum yair aso pratipadhyate. This was shloka 18. Translation. When there was a separate manifestation of skin, the controlling deities of sensation and their different parts entered into it, and thus the living entities feel itching and happiness due to touch. Purport. For sense perception, there are two principal items, touch and itching, and both of them are controlled by the skin and the hairs in the body. According to Sri Vishnava Chakravarti, the controlling deity of touch is air passing within the body, and controlling deity of the hairs on the body is Oshadha. For the skin, the object of perception is touch, and for the hairs on the body, the object of perception is itching. I just remember when you feel some itching, and then you scratch, you feel happy after the itching is relieved. So this is the standard of material happiness, just relieve the itching. Srila Prabhupada is quoting Vishnu Thakur here, and apart from what Srila Prabhupada said in a purport, Srila Vishnu Thakur he says that presiding deity of the skin sense organ is Vayu, and the sense object is touch. And the presiding deities of the hair sense organ are plants, and their function is relief from itching. This is interesting that plants are presiding deities of hair sense organs. And what is their function? To relieve from itching. So I guess some herbal remedies, if you have some itching disease, some herbal remedies made from plants, they're supposed to help to relieve the itching. Shloka 19. Medhram tasya vinirbhinam swadishnyam ka upavishat reta samshina yenashav anandam pratipadyate. When the genitals of the gigantic form separately became manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with his partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. So Prajapati here refers to Lord Brahma, the original living entity in this universe. Shloka 20. Kudam pumso vinirbhinam mitro lokesh ahavishat payunam shena yenaso visargam pratipadyate. The evacuation channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. This is also sort of a material happiness, to be able to pass stool and urine. Those who cannot, they feel very much troubled. And once they pass, it's a relief and it's a material happiness. Shloka 21. Hastavasya vinirbhinav indrasvar patir avishat vartyamshana purusho yaya vritim prapadyate. Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic forms separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. So, presiding deity of our hands is Lord Indra. So, without his permission, we cannot use our hands. 22. Padav asya vinirbhino lokisho vishnur avishat gatya swamshena purusho yaya prapyam prapadyate. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, in the brackets not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entities move to his destination. So there is a demigod called Vishnu, and he is not the Supreme Lord, and he is presiding deity of our legs. 23. Bodhim chasya vinirbhinam vat ishodishnyam avishat bodhinamshina bodhavyam pratiphatir yatho bhavet. When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. And the final shloka for today, Hridayam chasya nirbhinam chandrama adishnyam avishat manas samshana yenaso vikriyam pratipadhyate. After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Ghoravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangir Hade Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurat Vishe Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are hearing in this chapter about the creation of universal form as described by Maitreya to Vidura. It's a quite technical chapter, could feel a little bit difficult for the mind to process. So we saw how the Lord, he saw that creative functions were suspended because the elements, the material elements, they were in unmixed state. But then at that moment, by Lord's will, Lord's energy of cohesion entered into these 23 elements. And then all the jivas with the dormant karmas, they awakened. Elements got combined, and Viratrupa or Adi Purusha came into existence. And then it was described how Viratrupa lived in the waters with all the jivas for 1,000 celestial years till the Lord Brahma's birth. So the Lord Brahma was not born immediately. It took 1,000 celestial years for him to be born after the creation of the universe. So then Lord entered as Garbhodaka Shri Vishnu, and then everything else became manifested. So means consciousness of the jivas, jiva shakti, prana shakti, 10 life airs, Atma Shaktis or self-identification, Adhyatma, senses, Adibhuta, these are gross sense organs and sense objects, and Adidaiva, sense devatas, they all became manifested. So we have a gross sense organ, which is called Adhisthana or Adibhuta, and then we have senses in a proper sense, means Adhyatma, and then we have presiding deity of these senses called Adidaiva, and then we have action of each particular sense. For example, mouth is a gross sense organ, and the sense that is present in the mouth is called voice or vacha. Presiding deity is Agni, and the action performed is speaking. We all speak. And then gross sense organ is palate, sense is tongue or jiva, presiding deity is Varuna, and action is tasting. We can taste variety of different foodstuff, prasadam of the Lord. Then gross sense organ, nostrils, sense that is located in the nostrils is called nose, presiding deity is Ashwini Kumaras, and action is smelling. Sense object is scent. So similarly, eyes, skin, anus, genitals, hands, these are all 5 working senses, and then 5 knowledge gathering senses, totaling 10. And then above them is the mind, and presiding deity of the mind is Chandra or Soma. And similarly, we have sound, touch, form, taste, smell. These are all the objects of the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and speech, touch, movement, evacuation, and sexual intercourse. These are the objects of the working senses. And 11th function, that one of the mind is called the ego, false ego, ahankara. So you may ask, so why we need to know about this detailed knowledge of creation, of sense organs? It looks quite technical and maybe not so important. So why do we need to know about this? Why is it there in Bhagavatam? Well, one answer to this is because we live here in this universe, so it's good to know the place you live in. And also we live in the body. We have this body that is made of all these elements and the senses that were originally created during the manifestation of the universal form. So once we know where we are, then we can ask who we are. Are we this body or something else? And we can also ask, what are we supposed to do? How to use this body and the senses that are given to us in the best way that is favorable to our goal of life. So different people will have different goals in life. But we as devotees, aspiring Krishna Bhaktas, we have Purusha Artha, Parama Purusha Artha, which is Prema, the love of God. So naturally, as sadhakas, we want to know the way to use our body and senses that is favorable to devotional service. This is favorable to bhakti. So what is the way that is favorable of using this body and the senses? It is given to us by our Sampradayacharya, Srila Rupa Goswami, in which scripture? Anybody can guess? Where did he give it? Bhakti Rasamrita. But before that, there is one shorter scripture written by him. Nectar of Instruction or Shri Upadeshamrita. So in the very first verse of Shri Upadeshamrita, he is giving the way forward. Actually, it's interesting that the history of Upadeshamrita, according to some accounts, it was actually Lord Chaitanya who originally instructed Upadeshamrita to Srila Rupa Goswami in Jagannath Puri on the beach. And then Rupa Goswami, he wrote it down. And then there is also account, which is also quite accurate, that Rupa Goswami, he wrote it specifically for his nephew, Srila Jiva Goswami, to help him in his spiritual life. If you remember, there was an episode in which a scholar came to Vrindavan, who was Digvijay, who was going around Bharatavarsha challenging different scholars and getting from them patra, the written acknowledgement that he defeated them. So some similar mood, he came also to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami read in one of his verses that he was writing in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and scholar, he thought that he found a mistake, so he pointed a mistake. And Rupa Goswami said, yes, you're right. He didn't want to argue, although actually the scholar was not right. Srila Rupa Goswami, he wrote it properly and correctly. But Jiva Goswami, who was present, he didn't like this. So when this scholar went to take bath in Yamuna, Jiva Goswami, he confronted him, and he proved to him that actually what Rupa Goswami wrote was correct. And scholar was very much, perplexed, so he came back to Rupa Goswami and he apologized. He said, I'm sorry that I corrected you. You were right. Your composition is perfect. Rupa Goswami said, all right, whatever you say, I accept. But why did you come to tell me this now? Somebody told you something? And then, of course, the scholar had to tell him, well, your nephew, he pointed my mistake to me. And Rupa Goswami said, yes, okay. So when the scholar left, he called the Rupa Goswami and told him, since you cannot control your speech, your voice, and you challenge this Brahmana, who is a Pandita, I think you're not qualified to reside in Vrindavan. Only those who have control of their senses and their urges, they can reside in Vrindavan. So please go outside of Raj. Rupa Goswami didn't know how to react, but he obeyed. And he went on the outskirts of Raja, and he lived there in a cave, in a small cave that was abandoned. It was actually a hole that crocodile lived. So he lived there very austerely, practically no eating, for quite some time, until Sanatana Goswami, who was doing Vraj Mandala Parikrama, he saw him, and when he saw his condition, he felt very sorry, and he went to Rupa Goswami and told him, you are preaching about, Nam Ruchi, Vaishnava Seva, and Jiva Doya, but you don't have any Jiva Doya. Please have some Jiva Doya. At that moment, Rupa Goswami heart melted, and he said, okay, let's call back the Jiva. So he had the mercy on Jiva Doya. And at that moment, he instructed him this Sri Upadeshamrita for his personal sadhana. And we as the sadhakas of the future generations also have very much benefit of it. So let us hear the first verse of Sri Upadeshamrita. Vajjo vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaropasta vegam etam veganyo vishaheta dira sarvam apimam pritivam sa shishyat. In Srila Prabhupada's translation, a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this verse is about control of the urges and the senses. So you can ask, how is this connected to bhakti, to devotional service? We know that the definition of pure bhakti, again given by Srila Rupa Goswami, is Anya Vilashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Inavritam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. That pure bhakti is constant endeavor for Krishna with the intention for pleasing Him, that is free from all desires, Anya Abhilash, and it's unobstructed by karma and jnana, by fruitive actions and impersonal knowledge. So control of the senses is not directly Krishna Bhakti, but the cultivation of devotional service, cultivation of bhakti is based on acceptance of things that are favorable and rejection of the things that are unfavorable to bhakti. And this is extremely necessary if one wants to be successful in devotional service. Acceptance of the favorable and rejection of unfavorable, they are not in themselves limbs of pure bhakti, but they are limbs of sharanagati or sharanapati or surrender. And that sharanagati grants one eligibility for devotional service, eligibility for bhakti. So in this verse, Vachuvegam, rejection of the unfavorable things is prescribed. Uncontrolled senses and urges are something that is very unfavorable for our devotional service. And one who can tolerate these urges and who engages in pure devotional service, then he is qualified to instruct the whole world, to become guru of the whole world. But one who cannot tolerate, he becomes a victim of the 6 enemies. What are the 6 enemies? Lust, anger, greed, bewilderment, pride, envy. And when the mind is afflicted by these enemies, no pure devotional service is possible. It's not possible to perform bhakti when the mind is afflicted by these unfavorable emotions, starting with the lust. In Padma Purana we have a famous verse, Shokam Arshidibir Bhaver Akrantam Yasya Manasam Katam Tatra Mukundasya Sporti Sambhavana Bhavet, which says, how can Mukunda appear within the mind of one who is afflicted with lamentation, anger, and other emotions? So if the mind is afflicted by these strong negative emotions like anger, lamentation, and so on, bhakti cannot appear, and Lord cannot appear in that afflicted mind. So that's why Srila Rupa Goswami started first with this verse to help sadhakas prepare their hearts and mind for pure devotional service. So trying to check these 6 urges is not in self bhakti sadhana, is not itself part of sadhana bhakti, but it's a process making oneself eligible, fit to perform devotional service. There are also instructions on the path of karma and the path of jnana, how to control the mind and the senses, how to check these urges, but devotees, they don't follow these methods and processes. What we follow is a hearing about Krishna and informed pastimes and chanting about them and remembering, and this is the bhakti itself, and that process of bhakti has the power to control the 6 urges without help of other methods. But during the cultivation of devotional service, these 6 urges will arise and disturb our sadhana, especially of the immature sadhakas. So let us look first at this Vachovegam, because we don't have much time, but at least we can look at one aspect. Vachovegam, urge to speak. So in general, we or people, they're habituated to speak much. Generally, we don't take much time to discriminate whether what we speak is good or bad. And we are accustomed to talk and talk and talk. And in general, we have no control of that speech. We speak about everything and anything. And then sometimes later we repent, oh, why did I say that? Why did I offend that person or offend that person? But sometimes we try to justify, well, I'm straightforward and I'm truthful. I have to tell you everything in your face. But But this is just some force, some urge that is coming and pushing us to do these things, although they might not be very auspicious and favorable. So we must somehow learn to resist that force that is pushing us to always speak and to say everything that comes to our mind at any moment. So the Lord, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, in the 17th chapter, in Sloka 15, he is speaking about the austerity of speech. He says, Anudvega karam vakyam. Words that are not agitating. Satyam priya hitam chayat. Words that are truthful, sweet or pleasant, and hitam, that are beneficial. Svadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. Words that are used in study of Shastra, in Svadhyaya. Vanmayam tapa uchate. These words, they are considered austerity of speech. So this is tapovakya, the austerity of speech. So austerity of speech consists of speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, and also words that are used in reciting Vedic literatures. So first item that we have here is anudvega, not agitating. Words that are not agitating means not harsh, not critical. Sometimes you may be in position, for example, if you're a teacher, you can speak some more pointed words to a student, but your students only. But if you speak these harsh words to others, this is not auspicious and not recommended. You can speak these words only to those who are ready to hear, who are open to hear, and who want to hear them. Otherwise, if you speak agitating words to others, they will disturb their minds. So as we don't like to be agitated by others, we should not also agitate others. But there are some people who just enjoy to irritate and provoke others. They think it's their service to go around and correct and tell what is wrong here and there. We have many examples in the Shastra of this also, especially in Mahabharata. Vidura, who is hearing from Maitreya in this chapter, he explains to Dhritarashtra in Mahabharata that speech that is pleasant, subhashita vakya, carries a variety of auspiciousness with it. It's very auspicious. Subhashita vakya is very auspicious and everybody likes it. And contrary, durbhashita, the speech that is unpleasant, it leads to immense inauspiciousness. So unpleasant, harsh, piercing words, they're opposite to sweet, pleasant words. Example is given that in a forest that is cut down with the axe, sharp axe, can heal and grow back in due course of time. If you cut the trees, after 10, 20 years, trees will grow again. But it's said that a brutal, harsh word caused by unpleasant speech can never be healed. We remember harsh words for the rest of our life. So the harsh words can cause more havoc than the axe in the forest. And in Mahabharata, we have example of this. If you remember, it was Lord Krishna who went as a messenger of peace to Kauravas to make a settlement. After all the attempts to make a settlement, at the end he went with the final proposal and he suggested to Kauravas to give Pandavas at least 5 villages, because they're Kshatriyas, they're 5 brothers, and they at least need a small village to rule. So Krishna asked only for 5 villages, although they deserved much more. The entire kingdom was in reality theirs. But they were so humble, and Krishna was also not demanding, so he asked only for 5 villages. So what was Duryodhana's reply? He said in very harsh tone, I will not give them even that much land that they can put a needle. In very harsh and agitated words, he said this. And this verse, they pierced Krishna's heart and it pierced Pandava's heart. And that moment it was clear. The war has to happen. This Duryodhana and his brothers, they have to be finished. So just these harsh words, they caused the war and they caused the destruction of the entire Kuru dynasty. If Duryodhana had a little bit of self-control, if he said, okay, I'll give these 5 villages, he could have avoided all chaos, all destruction and disaster and millions of people dead. But no, he had to say, no, I will not give them even this little land. Another example, also in Mahabharata, we have Vidura talking to Dhritarashtra to try to bring him back to his senses. So he's telling him, you're maintaining the offense personified, Duryodhana, as your infallible son. But because he's envious of Lord Krishna, and because you're maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Please, my dear brother, relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible for your good and good of the whole family. And Duryodhana, somehow he was close by, and he heard this verse. And this verse also pierced his heart, and he felt deadly insulted. And what did he say? He reacted like a snake. So immediately he sprang back and told to Vidura, with very harsh words again, who asked you to come here, the son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of an enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. And then it's described in the Bhagavatam how Vidura was pierced by these harsh words, thus being pierced by arrows through his ears. So arrows through the ears. And afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of the external energy to be supreme. So immediately he left the palace because these words were so harsh that immediately he felt, I cannot stay here anymore, I have to go. So this was about unpleasant and harsh words, and contrary to them, the sweet words that we are advised to speak, the pleasing words. Next one that Krishna says in that Bhagavad Gita verse is Satyam Vakya, truthful words. In Bhagavad Gita we have Bali Maharaj explaining, there's nothing more sinful than untruthfulness. Because of untruthfulness, Mother Earth once said, I can bear any heavy thing except a person who is a liar. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says that on the surface of the earth, there are so many great mountains and oceans that are very heavy, but earth has no difficulty in carrying them, but on the other side, it has difficulty of carrying a liar on its surface. So it's always desirable and advised to speak the truth, but sometimes it might not be possible, or sometimes even might not be advisable in a special circumstances. What are these special circumstances? We have a story from Puranas. The dacoits were chasing a cow. Cow was passing by through a cottage of a Muni, and then when the dacoits came to the cottage of the Muni, he told them, oh, cow left in this direction. So they chased the cow, caught cow, and killed the cow. So he was speaking the truth because he has the vow to speak the truth, but he caused harm by speaking the truth. So in these cases, the truth is not advisable. Also, we have a famous example of Krishna telling to Maharaj Yudhishthir to tell that Ashwatthama is dead. Maharaj Yudhishthira, he first hesitated a little bit, and that was described as his slight fall down, because he didn't immediately follow instruction of Krishna to tell the truth. So, in Srila Jiva Goswami, in Bhakti Sandarbha, quoting from Padma Purana, he says, Man nimitam kritam papam, sin that is committed for my sake, apikshemaya kalpate, leads to one's benefit. Mam anadritya dharmopi, but dharma that is accompanied by neglect of me, papam syan mat prabhavata, results in sin by my influence. So, in other words, if you tell a truth but you neglect the Lord or dharma, it leads to destruction. But if you commit a sin for the sake of the Lord, that leads to your own benefit. But these are, of course, extraordinary circumstances. When there is a goal, higher goal of pleasing the Lord or making spiritual progress. We have an example of, for example, Sanatana Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He once he got tired of his governmental duties, and he told to Nawab Hussain Shah, he sent him a message that I'm sick and I cannot come for work. But in reality, he was having Bhagavad Katha with the Brahmanas at his house. So he was telling a lie. For which sake? For sake of devotional service. He wanted, to perform devotional service and hear Bhagavatam. Or sometimes in Varnashrama context also, the Vaishyas, they may be required to say sometimes a lie, otherwise they cannot sell things. So if one profession, like selling or trading, requires that, one is permitted to say untruth. And then next type of speech is called Priya Vakya, sweet, pleasing words. Everybody likes when you speak pleasingly to them. Everybody likes speech that is not rough, that is pleasing. Shad Goswamis, they are called Dhira Dhira Priya Karo. They were dear to everyone because their speech was so pleasing. They were always speaking sweet words. We have also example Vasudeva speaking to Kamsa when he wanted to kill the Devaki. With his sweet words, he managed to turn his mind and let him release the Devaki. But even if the words are sweet, sometimes they are not auspicious. In which circumstances? If they are not beneficial, if they are not hitam, beneficial. It is said, Priyam uktam hitad naitad, iti matva natad vadet. If something is pleasing to hear, but not beneficial to hear, one should not speak it. Shriyas tatra hitam vacham, yadyapi yatyantam apriyam. It is better to speak what is beneficial, even if it is unpleasant, even if it's apriyam. So, how much beneficial is a higher consideration. We just don't want to speak empty, sweet words. We want words also that, if possible, are sweet, but at the same time, they are beneficial. So there are many types of hitam vakya, many types of beneficial talk. Talk that is good for our health is beneficial. Some health tips. Talk that is beneficial for our finances. It's, also beneficial. Talk that is beneficial for your relationships, seminars on relationships, it's beneficial. But it's all sort of materially beneficial talk. But there is also talk that is beneficial for the soul. What is the talk? At the very beginning of Bhagavatam, we hear Tadvag Visargo Janathaga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhabadhavatyapi Namanyanantasya Yashon Kintaniach Srinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadavaha. The use of words in which, though not perfectly composed, they are names of the Lord and descriptions of His glories, which devotees hear, sing, recite. These words, they destroy the sins of all. So where we find such transcendental words, such transcendental speech, Tadvag Visargo? In Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, this is the best example of transcendental works. spoken by the Lord and words about the Lord. And so this is the ultimate speech that we want to hear, transcendental speech from the Lord and transcendental speech about the Lord. In regard to Krishna, his qualities, he has 64 qualities, and some of his qualities are directly related to speech. For example, Krishna's quality called Vivid Adbhuta Bhashavit. Krishna is a wonderful linguist. Vivid Adbhuta Bhashavit. So what is this wonderful linguist? Rupa Goswami says that a person who knows the language of different countries and even language of the animals, he is called Vivid Adbhuta Bhashavit, wonderful linguist. So Krishna, he can speak and understand language of Mathura, which is called Shurasen, Shauraseni. This is the language of Mathura and Vraj. And then he also speaks the language of the demigods, of the devatas. If you remember, with Indra, he spoke Sanskrit, Deva Bhasha. And then he also speaks colloquial dialects with the low-class people like Abhiras. And then he speaks with the cows and buffaloes, and also with the parrots. So the animals, they also have their language, and Krishna speaks all these languages. So guess what? He speaks also English. What to speak about Bangla? It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's language, but English he speaks, and he speaks Russian also, Ruski, and Chinese as well. Can you imagine? Somebody speaking all these languages, and German, and how many languages are there? Hundreds. He knows all the languages. So when we pray to Krishna, if we pray in our own language, he will understand, don't worry, any language. So Krishna is, one of his qualities also that he is truthful. It's called Satya Vakya. Syan, in Bhaktisiddhanta Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says, Syan nanritam vacho yasya satya vakya sakatyate. A person is called a speaker of the truth whose words are never false. So, Krishna's words are never false. Once he promised Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, that he would bring their 5 sons back after the war. And guess what? After the war, all the 5 Pandavas, they were still alive. And then Kunti Devi, being very, very grateful, she said, even the sunshine may one day become cool, and the moonshine one day may become hot, but still your promise will never fail. So this is Satya Vyakya, Krishna's speech, always truthful. Of course, when he jokes with the Rajvasis, with the gopis, he will say some untruths, but this is a different thing. And he's also called Priyam Vada. This is one of the qualities of Krishna. Priyam Vada, pleasing talker. Speaking in a pleasing manner means speaking in a manner that is pleasing even to those who offended you. For example of this is given that Krishna spoke in very sweet, pleasing manner to Kaliya, who offended him. He said, O king of the snakes, though I have afflicted you, you do not find fault in me. For the good of the cows and worthy of respect of the devatas, you should live far from here. So very sweetly he spoke to Kaliya to tell him to go away from Yamuna, not to poison the animal, although Kaliya previously fought with him. Krishna is also called Bhavadukha, means somebody who is very fluent or eloquent. And Rupa Goswami says that there are 2 types of eloquence. Speaking what is pleasing to the ear and speaking with a deep or clever meaning. So pleasing to the ear is the first type of eloquence. And an example of this is given when Krishna spoke very eloquently and politely to his father Nanda Maharaj to convince him not to perform the sacrifice to Indra. And then some gopi overheard it. And then after that she was so astonished that she said, Krishna was speaking to his father so politely and gently that it was as if he were pouring nectar into the ears of all present there. After hearing such sweet words from Krishna, who will not be attracted to him? And Jiva Goswami, he comments that there are different types of sweetness. It can be sweetness of diction, sweetness in the composition, and sweetness of the tone. And then second type of sweet speaking is speaking with a deep meaning. And Krishna also has this ability to speak with deep meaning. So Uddhava, in this regard, he says, the words of Krishna are so attractive that they can immediately change the heart of even his opponent. His words can immediately solve all the questions and problems of the world. Although he does not speak very long, each and every word from his mouth contains volumes of meaning. These speeches of Krishna are very pleasing to my heart. So when Krishna speaks, it's so endearing. It makes us so much attracted to him. And Arjuna, he confirms this in a Bhagavatam, in the 15th chapter, when he comes back from Dwaraka, and he's describing to Maharaj Yudhishthira how Krishna left. Then he remembers, with the tears in his eyes, he remembers Krishna's words, and he says, Narman yudhara ruchira smita shobitani he partha he Arjuna sakhe kurunandanati sanjal pitani naradeva haridis prishani smartur lutanti hridaya mama madhavasya. He says, O king, his joking and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Prita, O friend, He Partha, He Arjuna Sakhe, O son of the Kuru dynasty, all such heartiness is now remembered by me, and thus I feel overwhelmed. So just by remembering Krishna's speech, we can feel how our attraction for him is growing more and more. Anyway, I'll have to stop now here. It's already 9 o'clock. If anybody has some quick commentary questions. Yes, Janmashtami Prabhu. Is there a mic?
You, in the beginning of the class, you were speaking about how it's difficult if someone's spoken harshly to you to forget that, it kind of stays in the heart. But it seems to me that from a Vaishnava standpoint, we should still try really hard, forgive and forget, or else how can we live? Because in Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel, those kind of things come up. But then relationships should go on so that devotees can serve cooperatively in Prabhupada's mission. So what do you think about that? I mean, it seems to me that it's something that it's doable for a Vaishnava to cry from his heart to Krishna, please let me forgive this devotee.
Yes, you're right. We should try very hard, but even we may try, but it might be difficult. Especially if the words were especially cruel and evil and piercing. We might try, but we might not be able. We might still, in the back, feel some reservation towards that person, unless he really comes and touches our feet and sincerely and genuinely apologizes that we can forgive. But if he doesn't do that, it's difficult. It's difficult to forgive. Of course, it's individual. Some Vaishnavas, they might be able to forgive even if the person doesn't ask forgiveness sincerely. But not everybody can forgive. And it's just a human nature that we remember these harsh words. So depending how much we transcended this human nature, to that extent, it will depend how much we can forget these harsh words. Some people may be able to do it easier. For some, it might be more difficult. But definitely we should strive to it. But yeah, what can I say? I still remember from my childhood, some boy, in some childish quarrel telling me something. And somehow it just got stuck in my mind. I still remember it was a foolish, childish play. But he was, so harsh and telling me something. And somehow the samskara is still there. And I cannot just take a rubber and erase it so easy. Somehow it has to go naturally. So we should try, definitely, I agree. But how much success will it be? Depends. If Krishna gives mercy, we can forget everything. If we are completely absorbed in an ecstasy of devotional service, it's easy to forget everything. So this is the way. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.